Why do we forget to keep the Sabbath holy when God has said, keep it holy?
Sinful to worship on Sunday. This is coming from the YouTube channel, Nicholas Bolin. College students debate Sabbath day, get humbled by Jesus' own words. Okay. We are hearing and listening to this for the first time. It's been on my list and I said, I'm not going to listen to it. I'm going to do a live reaction video and take a listen. So I guessed what's happening here. These three young ladies are Sabbath keepers, and they are debating this man who is Nicholas Bolin on his YouTube channel, 921,000 subscribers. Whoa. All right, let's take a listen to what is being said here.
To keep the Sabbath holy when God... Why do we forget to keep the Sabbath holy when God has said, keep it holy?
I'm not forgetting to keep the Sabbath holy.
Do you do it on Saturday or Sunday?
I do it a lot. So you're telling me we should only gather together on Saturdays to preach and teach about Jesus. You would judge someone and say you're sinning because you're not keeping it on a Saturday. You're arguing with the scriptures that I'm bringing out.
But you're doing the same thing.
No. I'm showing you Jesus. He's talking about those scriptures. If you're sticking with what you're saying and not what Jesus said, then you're calling Jesus a sinner.
First of all, I want to thank you for all you do. I've been watching you on Instagram, so keep it up.
All glory to him.
So I have a question. Do you think stealing is a sin?
Stealing?
Yes.
Yes.
Do you think worshiping other gods is a sin?
Yes.
Do you think not keeping the Sabbath is a sin?
As far as what Jesus said in the scriptures, even how Jesus healed a man's hand on the Sabbath, right? And even as Jesus, they were picking grain on the Sabbath, right? And then later in the New Testament, it says, don't judge each other based on Sabbaths or feasts or even...
That wasn't the question that she asked, but anyway. So he said yes for everything else. When you get to the Sabbath, you're getting a long explanation. Let's see where this is going.
Things that you would eat, things like that. So Jesus, he came and fulfilled the law, right? The Bible says Jesus didn't come to abolish it, but he came to fulfill the law. And Jesus revealed that it's really about the matters of the heart, and it's really about love. And he...
All right. I know you guys in the comment are going to have to comment underneath this video. Jesus came to fulfill the law, but he didn't come to abolish the law. It's a matter of the heart. But he was just saying earlier, are you hearing the contradiction? He was just saying earlier that stealing is a sin, right? So that's the same law that Jesus came to fulfill, but that only applies when it comes to the Sabbath day. My man, you are already in a deep hole.
He said this, he said, man was not made for the Sabbath, but the Sabbath was made for men. So men aren't made under the authority of the Sabbath, but the Sabbath was actually...
You can tell this young lady here, she's wiping her face. She knows that the theological position is so flawed. She's like, oh my goodness, this guy.
Made as a place for men to come and even to rest and to honor the Lord and to be with him and all those things. So based on what Jesus said, then someone who doesn't keep the Saturday, right? A lot of people say Saturday is actually the true Sabbath day. And then you're sinning, right? And then if you're sinning and you willfully go on sinning, then you could go to hell, is scripturally what it says. So do I think people are going to hell because they don't keep the Sabbath on Saturday? No, I don't think they do. And I think Jesus dealt with that. And it's really about the matters of the heart. And Jesus said all of the law is fulfilled in this.
Now, if you make this argument, you open a can of worms. It is okay to break any one of God's law from this point forward. That's what you just said. It's a matter of the heart. You know, now the gays and the lesbians, the homosexuals, the abortionists, you can go on and on. No matter what law they violate, it's a matter of the heart. Now the door is wide open. We can do as we please. Is that what the Bible teaches? Why is he doing this? He's trying to avoid the Sabbath. And he is destroying the 10 commandments just because he doesn't want to keep number 4. So, Nicholas, my man, you're making a big mistake here. And these young girls, I'm sure they're going to school you.
If you love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and you love your neighbor, even as he has loved us.
Well, thank you. Genesis chapter 2, verse 2, it says, do you want to read it?
Yeah. On the seventh day, God had finished his work of creation, so he rested from all his work. And God blessed the seventh day and declared it holy, because it was a day when he rested from all his work of creation.
Yeah, when he created the Sabbath, there was no people. So he created for us because he made it holy. So I think we should all observe the Sabbath.
And also, I had a question. You just mentioned that if you don't do one of the 10 commandments, it's like you sin, basically, if you don't observe even one of the commandments. And the commandments to rest on Sabbath is the 4th commandment. So how can you explain that if it is in the commandments?
Yeah.
Yes. Oof. They answered with scripture and then questioned him once again. Great dialogue, and I love how respectable they are. Well-behaved young ladies. I'm not sure if this man think this was a good video for him. Let me read his what's happening in the chat here. And people in the comments are agreeing with the girls. 3 lovely girls ask about to let others know the truth. Sabbath is the 7th day of the week. People are saying, observe the Sabbath and keep it holy. Consequently, there remain a Sabbath to the people of God. He's getting roasted. He's getting roasted. His own fan base is correcting him. So this video didn't do him any service here. Some people say every day. Yeah, you can teach and preach every day, but every day is not the Sabbath. Correct. His comments are telling you that the people who are listening to his YouTube channel, they understand this subject much more than he does.
This is Mark chapter 2, verse 23. Now it happened that he went through the grain fields on the Sabbath, and as they went, his disciples began to pluck the heads of grain. And the Pharisees said to him, look, why do they do what is not lawful on the Sabbath? But he said to them, have you never read what David did when he was in need and hungry, he and those with him, how he went into the house of God in the days of Abiathar, the high priest, and ate the showbread, which is not lawful to eat except for the priest, and also gave some to those who were with him. And he said to them, the Sabbath was made for man, and not man for the Sabbath. Therefore the Son of Man is also Lord of the Sabbath. And right here also in Colossians 2:16, it says, so
these are called the anti-Sabbath arguments, right? They're using scripture to contradict the biblical Sabbath. It never works, really. It's just that their interpretation of what these passages are actually completely wrong. That's not what, it wasn't an anti-Sabbath argument. It was more dealing with the practice of the church leaders of the time that Jesus was addressing. It wasn't like the Sabbath was the problem. It was the leaders and their practice and the tradition of the elders at the moment. That was the main issue. But anyway, let's go to Colossians chapter 2. We know that one. They love using that one.
Let no one judge you in food or drink, or regarding a festival or a new moon or Sabbaths, which are a shadow of things to come, but the substance is of Christ. So right there, those 2 verses, that's how Jesus has responded when people came up to him and they were trying to kind of point the finger at him because they were eating grain on the Sabbath. So that's the way that Jesus responded to what you're referring to right now.
So you're saying we shouldn't follow the 4th commandment?
Well, Jesus just said man's not made for the Sabbath, but Sabbath is made for man. Was Jesus sinning when he did that?
No, he wasn't, because he kept the Sabbath. But he did good things.
Exactly. Jesus kept it. So Jesus could not have spoken against it and then turn around and keep it himself. Right? And also we find evidence in Matthew 24, for example. After the death of Jesus, he's giving charge and order to his disciples when they flee, not to flee on the Sabbath day, which happened in AD 70. Well, the destruction happened in AD 70, but in AD 66, they fled. Anyway, so which goes back to the point, if the Sabbath had no significance, why will Jesus keep it? Why will the apostles after Christ keep it? Hundreds of years afterward, at the destruction of Jerusalem, it was kept. Never Sunday, even after the resurrection. So again, it goes to show you cannot use the words of Jesus and ignore the very lifestyle in which he lived. What's happening here? You're misinterpreting the words of Jesus to reject the biblical Sabbath. That's all it is.
No, he wasn't, because he kept the Sabbath. But he did good things on Sabbath. He still kept the Sabbath.
No. Right there, they're accusing him for doing what's not lawful on the Sabbath. That's what the religious people were accusing him of.
Yeah, exactly. What was not lawful according to them. So you're going to take the words of these religious Pharisees, those men who united with Pilate and put Christ on the cross. You're going to take their words as gospel? Man, these were the same people who called Jesus Beelzebub. You're going to believe that too? They call him a friend of sinner, a wine babber. You're going to believe that too? They say he wanted to destroy the temple. Are you going to believe that too? You know what I'm saying? So you're going to take the word of religious leaders at this point to reject the biblical Sabbath when you know very well these men were hypocrites. These men were apostates. These men hated Christ. They were trying to find a reason to accuse him. This was one of those cases. But no, you reject their words, and when it comes to everything else, when it comes to the Sabbath day, you want to take that as gospel. This goes to show you're desperate. You're trying to find a reason to reject the biblical Sabbath. And guess what? These girls are putting you on blast.
If you're sticking with what you're saying and not what Jesus said, then you're calling Jesus a sinner. Do you guys think Jesus is a sinner?
No. Stop that game. That's a game. Stop that game. That has nothing to do. That's why they laugh. I'm glad they laugh. They're like, oh, brother, please stop playing.
Okay.
If I was there, I would laugh. I said, brother, come on, stop. Stop. As a matter of fact, the one who's calling Jesus a sinner here is you, because you saying it's okay to break the Sabbath, even though Jesus never broke the Sabbath. And you telling them that Jesus went against the Sabbath, which means you are the one calling Jesus a liar. In essence, the one who is claiming that Christ is a liar is you. The one who is actually making Jesus look bad is you, because God says, remember the Sabbath day, and you're telling the world to forget. Why do you do that? Because of the tradition of men. So the argument that he's proposing here falls more in line with the attitude of the Pharisees. These young ladies are showing the attitude of Christ. He's showing the attitude of the Pharisees. And that's what he fails to understand.
Then I'm going to stick with what Jesus said. There's some wisdom with what he's saying. He said, let no one judge you in Sabbaths, which are a shadow of things to come, but the substance is of Christ. So I would seek the Lord more about what...
The Sabbath here has nothing to do with the biblical Sabbath, by the way. We did an entire video. This has to do with feast days, new moon, holy days, Sabbath days. Feast days were mentioned in Leviticus 23 as Sabbath days. That's not an uncommon practice. They simply mean rest days. It simply means a day for rest. So every time you see Sabbath in the Bible, doesn't mean a literal 7-day Sabbath. Sometimes the biblical feast days were referred to as Sabbath days. So there's a difference between the yearly feast days with the 7th literal day Sabbath, which happens on the 7th day of the week. So even though they have the same name, doesn't automatically mean the same exact thing. But again, it goes to show a lot of our people, a lot of evangelicals today do not know the Bible. They do not understand this subject on the Sabbath. And it's sad. And this is why these young ladies are there. Their job is to correct and instruct the man.
That means that Sabbaths are actually a shadow of things to come, but the substance is of Christ. And based on even Jesus' life and the example that he set, we can't call Jesus a sinner, and he's the one that they were accusing of sinning because he was doing some kind of work on the Sabbath. But he was doing good work on the Sabbath. He was doing the Father's will on the Sabbath.
Yeah, I agree with what you said, but do you think Sunday is man-made day?
Do I think Sunday is a man-made day? Like Sunday being the day people go to church? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because there's no way in the Bible that says you should go to church on Sunday. So do you think Sunday was created by a man?
Let me read something to you really quick. This is Acts 5:42. So they departed from the presence of the council, rejoicing that they were counted worthy to suffer shame for his name. And daily in the temple and in every house, they did not cease teaching and preaching Jesus as the Christ. That says daily. I know you guys are reading something. I'll just read it one more time. And daily in the temple and in every house, they did not cease teaching and preaching Jesus as the Christ. So that says every day they were in the temple and in every house teaching and preaching. So I think every day would be a wonderful day, just as it says they did right there. to go into the temple, the house of God, the gathering of the saints.
Uh-oh, somebody else is coming. One more soldier is coming. Watch it now.
To teach and preach about Jesus.
Hi, I'm Joy. I'm going to join them.
Hi, Joy. I'm glad you're joining.
Well,
nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you. You say that Jesus was doing good on that day. And we agreed that doing good, you can do good on Saturday. You could do good on Sabbath day. But why are we going to worship and why are we going to church on Sundays instead of the Sabbath day, which God has created for us to rest? So you're saying that people shouldn't judge you, but why are we not keeping why are we not keeping the 10 commandments? We're keeping only 9. But then if we're not keeping the 10 commandments, why are we not keeping the rest of the commandments? So how do you explain that to me?
Oh, by the way, this is a reaction videos. I provide comments and I pause. If you want to hear this without my commentary, there's a link in the description below. I didn't say this at the start, but that's just what this one is. It's just a reaction. I'm not going to respond to the entire thing. I want you to go and give him the viewership. This is the man's work. We're going to respect his work. But yeah, this is what's going on here. Good questions. Let's take a listen.
In everything that we just read that Jesus said, we just read that they were in the temple every day and house to house teaching and preaching. That means in modern day terms, they were in the church every day. They were gathering with believers every day, teaching and preaching Jesus Christ.
That doesn't make every day the Sabbath day, right? There's still a 7th day Sabbath, right? There is still a 7th day Sabbath. So what you do every single day as far as God's work, I give Bible studies and I do videos and I preach and I teach. And so what? So what? That means nothing. That doesn't mean Sabbath keeping is no longer significant. You see, there is still a call to keep it holy. Oftentimes, Sunday keepers will think Sabbath keeping means go to church. It is true. Going to church is part of Sabbath keeping, but Sabbath keeping has much more than going to church. It is a day to keep holy. You rest on that day. You stop your work and you rest on that day in strengthening and building a relationship with Jesus Christ. Now, service, fellowship, church, and all these other things you can bring into the Sabbath day, but there's also other things you cannot do. There are other things you should not do, buying and selling, cooking and all that. You put all that stuff away. The intention in the heart must be given to Christ for the 24 hours. This is to be done on the 7th day of the week, not on Sunday. Sunday is it's just another work day. Now, you choose to go to church on that day, you can, but that's not keeping the Sabbath holy. Neither is it meant to be a substitute of the biblical Sabbath. These are the facts, and these young ladies are correct.
So you're telling me we should only gather together on Saturdays to preach and teach about Jesus?
So, okay.
No, sorry. You got to answer that question.
What's your question again? I'm sorry.
Yeah. Should Saturday be the only day that we should teach and preach in a church about Jesus?
It shouldn't be the only day, but we should keep it holy as what God had said.
It should not be the only day, but you should keep it holy, just as God has says. I love these girls. Somebody got to get me in touch with them. I need to get in touch with these girls. Just talking about, this is beautiful to see.
Because God said, keep it holy. Don't let anyone in your home, not your father, not your son, not anybody, not your maid, do anything on that day. So keep it holy. Why don't we keep it holy? And what's the reason? This is my question to you. Why is the reason? Okay, my God. What's the reason why you guys go to church on Sunday?
I love what she's saying, right? God says to keep it holy. It's a command, just like every other one. Keep the day holy. Remember my day to keep it holy. Why are you playing around with this one? Why are you dancing around with this one? Why are you going to church on a different day and ignoring God's biblical 7-day Sabbath? Why do you It's a good question, because what she's getting to the heart of the matter is, what Jesus says in John 14:15. If you love me, keep my commandments. Why are you dancing around with this one? And this was my issue as well. And what brought me into the Seventh-day Adventist Church is because I could not understand how you read the Bible from Genesis to Revelation. You see evidence for Sabbath keeping all throughout the Bible, and then you reject it. You reject it for Sunday. And I was raised in a Catholic church, and they could not give me an answer. This is why I'm a Sabbath keeper today. And that's a good question. Now, he's going to give us an answer. We're going to hear a few more comments, and then we're going to end this video.
Well, what's the reason that they did it every day in the book of Acts?
Well,
Because every day is a good day to teach and preach about Jesus.
Okay.
That's why.
You see, he missed the point. She said, why don't you keep the seventh day Sabbath holy? What you preach and teach throughout the rest of the days of the week, like the early apostles did, breaking bread any day of the week, that doesn't really mean you keeping a Sabbath day holy on those days. God already made one birthday, one anniversary, right? One Independence Day. We don't make up whichever day we want to be our Sabbath. Neither is the book of Acts chapter 5:20. It's an excuse for rejecting the biblical Sabbath. You can teach and preach every day of the week. We do this all the time when we do evangelistic outreach. But when the seventh day of the week comes, that's the Sabbath of the Lord. We keep it holy. Well, at least we try to put away the distraction and everything else that does not align with it. And we turn our hearts and minds on Jesus Christ. Is there something wrong with that?
all right. But why do we forget to keep the Sabbath holy when God has said, keep it holy?
Love it.
I'm not forgetting to keep the Sabbath holy.
Do you keep it holy?
Yeah.
By how?
By how?
These brothers just lied. Nicholas, why are you lying, man? Why are you lying? Anyway, I'm having too much fun with this one. I love these type of videos.
By how? The teaching, preaching, resting, right? I rest from labor, even on the Sabbath. Jesus even told the Pharisees when they came out and questioned him about the Sabbath, he told them this. He said, which one of you, if one of your sheep fall in a hole in the ground, hold on. You got to listen, okay? You can't just process and think about what you're going to say next. You actually got to listen. So if a lamb...
But the problem is a lot of the biblical passages you're bringing have very terrible interpretation, Nicholas. Your interpretation of these passages are really bad. You're using the Bible to argue against the Sabbath. That's what you're doing. And they can see through that. That's why they're laughing. Because they're like, wow, that's how terrible it is. Yo, you're using the word of Jesus against his own commandments. It's just crazy.
Falls in the ground, which of you is going to wait until the next day to go rescue your lamb? But you're actually, no, even the people who were religious and they were saying, oh, we can't work on the Sabbath.
That was the issue was with the Pharisees. It wasn't the Sabbath, my man. It was with the tradition of the elders. This had nothing to do with the Sabbath. Why does he keep doing this? The Bible is so clear, man. This Bible is so clear. On the issue of the Sabbath, the Bible is clear. The confusion is something you're making, man.
They would go and they would rescue their lamb out of a pit that it had just fallen in and bring it up. And that was where Jesus was healing someone on the Sabbath day, because you're not supposed to do work, but he was working a miracle on the Sabbath day. And they were accusing him of breaking the Sabbath in those ways. So my answer, it's going to stay the same, which is exactly what Jesus said in both of those places that I just read to you, about how the man was not made for Sabbath. We're not bound under the Sabbath, but the Sabbath was actually made as a gift to men, right? It was made as a gift to man, and they met.
So why do you reject the gift? Why do you reject the gift? If it is a gift to men, I agree with that. It is meant to commemorate creation, yes. It's also a commandment. So God placed it at the heart of his law. It's also a commandment. Why do you fight against it? And God tells you to remember it. Why do you forget? Why are you trying to forget about it? You see, these were questions I asked myself years ago, and I had to humble myself and accept the reality. The Sabbath is on the seventh day of the week. It is meant to be kept holy. This is the commandment of the Lord. All that other shenanigan, all that beautiful talk, it means nothing if you reject that one. And now, the fact you're being confronted with this by these amazing, beautiful young ladies, you are in trouble because you have to make a decision soon and very soon, because the truth has come to you.
Every single day. Again, I'm just going to point you to what we read first, which was, he said these things Don't judge one another based on a Sabbath.
This is a terrible argument. All right, so there's like 4 minutes left. I'm going to let you go and listen. There's going to be a link in the description below. How do you think these young ladies manage themselves? I need to get in touch with them. If they ever see this reaction video, contact me. Email below. I would love to have a nice discussion with you about this video here to hear your thought and perspective. I really appreciate their attitude. Look how poised they are. Do you think they are afraid? They know their Bible. You can't fool them. Okay, so, and again, if you don't believe me, just read the comments. The comments are in favor of these young ladies. I think she was trying to ask you, why is Sunday the common day to worship when we worship him every day and God only blessed and told us to remember one day? And people are saying, this is hard to watch. Mr. Bolin, you need to do your research on this. You did not answer these girls' questions. You just debated. You can't love God when you can't obey him. Jesus never abolished the 4th commandment. My man, the comments are lit. And they are against them. You ladies are amazing. God bless you more. It's clear that the girls are Seventh-day Adventist. Praise the Lord for that, and I hope it was a blessing indeed. Nice interaction. We love it here. And again, I can give you so much evidence and some biblical reasons for this. You can go on my channel. If you just type Sabbath, we have so many videos on this subject where we talk about different aspects of it. We address every single biblical text here. So there is nothing new that this man is saying that either we haven't already heard. But again, the 7th day is the Sabbath. Christ is coming again, and God commanded us to keep it holy. I love what these girls are doing. I love their attitude and also their approach. I really hope and pray that Mr. Bolin will rethink his position, because he needs to do so. I'll see you in the next video. Have a good one. Bye.